Welcome to another episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast with your hosts, Sean Sorrentino and Aaron Paulette.
Welcome to episode 174 of GunBlog VarietyCast Radio, a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. How are you doing, Aaron?
Wow, I have had a rough couple days. I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to say that I had to take some time off from Facebook. I shut down my account. So by the time this drops, if you still haven't heard from me, that's what's going on. I just need to take a break. There's just way too much stuff going on with me. So Sean, I understand you've got a birthday coming up. How's that going?
Well, thanks for telling everybody, Aaron. I was going to try to sneak out on that one until the day. But yeah, 2 days before Christmas is the second happiest day of the year. The worst, literally the worst day of the year is December 24th. It's the day between my birthday and Christmas. So as a kid, it was kind of funny. I would get this cool new present for my birthday, and I'd be out playing with it the day before Christmas. You know, because I lived in Los Angeles, you could go out there, unlike some of you people who live in the Great White North. And so I'd be like riding my brand new bicycle or God knows what, and I'd get these dirty looks from people. I'm like, why do you have this great present, this new thing, the day before Christmas? Well, it's because it was my birthday. And then the day after, you're like, it's not Christmas yet. Where are the rest of my presents? And my brother, of course, it's not his birthday, so he's miserable the whole time. He's like, this sucks. So yeah, I get to go through the, Christmas Eve thing, which I always hated. But the second most wonderful time of the year is my birthday, 2 days before Christmas. I think what's going to actually happen is on Friday before my birthday. No, it's actually Wednesday now that I think about it. Wednesday before my birthday, we're going to be going and hanging out with the in-laws. They usually, do some kind of a dinner over their house, something like that. It's pretty cool. I got great in-laws. So, Aaron, I found yet one more reason that we all need to be carrying our guns whenever we can.
Do tell.
Just in case Taylor Swift orders your execution.
What? I mean, I know she hates her boyfriends and she sings breakup songs about them, but I don't think she's ever called on her fans to kill anyone. She hasn't even called on her friends to cut a bitch. So what is this?
Well, there's a story in my local newspaper that is Dateline, Portland, Oregon. Look at what she made him do. I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere, but I don't know any Taylor Swift songs. A man accused of trying to stab someone with scissors in downtown Portland this weekend told police that Taylor Swift instructed him to do it. KATU reports 43-year-old suspect was arrested on assault charges, unlawful use of a weapon, trespassing, and menacing. Witnesses told police that suspect was acting menacingly towards people near the intersection of Northwest 3rd Avenue and Burnside Street at 11 a.m. Sunday.
Stop by and say hi.
The victim said he started running away, and suspect allegedly chased him. A probable cause affidavit states that suspect told officers Taylor Swift, quote, told me to kill him, end quote, KATU reports. He also claimed that Swift is his wife. When officers asked where Swift was, he answered, quote, we are one.
Okay, so on the crazy meter, this does rank higher than shooting Ronald Reagan in order to impress Jodie Foster, but it's not quite as good as taking commands to kill given to you telepathically by your dog.
And see, I don't understand that one. My dog would never try to give me telepathic commands to kill, unless, of course, she was talking about a cat.
No, she'd give you commands to give her treats and attention and play with her.
Well, she does that anyway. Not really telepathically. She's got them ears. My wife was really surprised because she never had a dog with up ears before. She was amazed at how expressive a dog can be with ears that just sort of, twiddle around.
Yeah, they're little radar dishes, aren't they?
Oh my goodness, it's funny. Like you can tell, oh, I'm sad. Oh, I'm very excited. Oh, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, we're good. It's hilarious. On the Skypes, I'm doing like the ears with my hands. It's not going to do any of you people in podcast land any good, but Aaron,
yeah, it's very funny for me to watch.
So, important note to all: Taylor Swift wants you dead, and she's telling her husband to kill you. So carry your gun.
Which, of course, brings us to a very important question. What caliber for Taylor Swiftian assassins?
I'm going with 9mm because that's what I carry, but...
Well, regardless of what caliber you carry, thanks to Lucky Gunner and Remington for their support of GunBlog VarietyCast Radio. From Golden Saber to range rounds, get a full lineup of quality Remington ammo that ships fast at LuckyGunner.com.
So let's get on with the show. What's new with Beth this week?
Beth and her husband are getting ready to shoot a 3-gun buddy match. What is it? What kind of gear do you need? How do you practice for it? Listen and find out.
My husband Sean and I have been getting ready for an upcoming buddy match, and I thought it would be fun to actually share what that is and the kinds of things that we need to actually participate and kind of what the whole thing is all about. It's really a unique match, a unique shooting competition, and it's something that I don't know if it's special to where we shoot at Brock's Gap Training Center here in Hoover, Alabama, but it's a really neat experience because it gives two people the opportunity to go through several different stages with 3 different guns and sometimes have to swap equipment and also have to wait for one another to be able to proceed. But I wanted Sean to be here to talk about it as well. Since it is a buddy match, it makes sense that I have my buddy, right, Sean?
That's right.
So what do you think is the best or easiest way to describe what the buddy match is?
It's taking a shooting competition and making it a team sport. Every buddy match we've done has been a 3-gun competition. So pistol, shotgun, AR. And it's a lot of fun.
And of course, obviously, if it's a 3-gun match, there's a lot of equipment involved.
Loads.
I mean, literally.
Loads.
So you gotta think about ammunition first and foremost.
All 3 guns.
All 3 guns. And how much is average, do you guess, just for the pistol for a tactical, practical 3-gun buddy match?
100 to 150 of pistol
per person,
and AR, and then 2 or 3 boxes of shotgun shells
per person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lot of gear that we're toting around. We each have that ammo. We each have our own guns, and then of course whatever else you might need. Your magazine pouches for the AR.
Yeah, the belt gets ridiculous.
Yeah, the belt gets pretty heavy because you also have your shotgun ammunition. You've got your pistol. You've got your mag pouches for your pistol. It's just, there's literally stuff everywhere. So when it's a 3-gun match or a buddy match, what makes this so unique from any other competition? I mean, you said it's a team sport, but what exactly does that mean?
At the start, and it's different every time. You might start with a shotgun, you might start with an AR, you might start with pistol. You each have your own little zone of targets that you're responsible for. And then when each area is clear, you scream out clear to let your partner know that you're done with your area, and you can move up into the stage to switch guns and shoot at more targets. And then same thing happens. You scream clear when you're done, or when they're done, you move up together. Sometimes you get to use your gun the whole time. And then sometimes you have to run across the stage and grab your partner's gun, so you have to know how to load it, how to manipulate it, how to shoot it, which Beth and I kind of have an unfair advantage because since we live together, we have all the exact same guns. We have 2 of each, so it's kind of cheating.
I don't know that that's an unfair advantage.
Well,
but...
not unfair, but it's tactical.
maybe in this one instance, we actually have a slight advantage. But I mean, I know a lot of people in the competition love the M&P because both of us use the M&P 9mm as our pistol of choice. And we actually learned about that gun in competition. I mean, those are the folks that said, hey, you should get this gun. But you'll also see 1911s. You'll see a lot of Glocks. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people really struggle because in the rare occasion that you do have to use someone else's handgun, it can be a little bit complicated to remember what the steps might be to use that firearm. Even if it's a different caliber, it might feel completely different. And of course, we all know that the sights can be so different from firearm to firearm. Some people love, their fiber optics, and it could be red or yellow or green. There's all sorts of things that you could be surprised at. And luckily, when it comes to the AR platform, we both have fairly similar firearms, I guess, in that respect as well. Sean, you have a
Sig Sauer.
And I have a gun that was put together and kind of customized for me by Steel City Arsenal, which is actually owned by a friend of mine here locally in the Birmingham, Alabama area. And that gun is phenomenal.
Incredible.
It is light.
Incredible
It
gun.
shoots everything that you put in it, and it's so much fun to use in a competition scene. So usually that's the gun we bring if we're competing separately. But when obviously we're competing together as the buddy match, we each have to bring the AR, and sometimes I end up having to use his, sometimes he uses mine, and we just kind of have to remember what we need to remember about it, whether it's ambidextrous or not, and how they function. We do have the same kind of sight system on it as well, though.
Yeah.
The EOTech is on both of
Yeah.
them, so that might make it a little easier for us since we know exactly what we're looking for, no matter which gun we pick up. And of course, when it comes to shotguns, I have my beloved Benelli M2, and we had in the past been using
1970s Remington Wingmaster 870 pump action.
Oh my gosh, but that gun is beautiful.
Beautiful.
And shoots.
It's my father's, and it's literally
great.
40-something years old. It's incredible.
Oh, but what a gun. It's been so much fun to use in competition, but it was also kind of a cringe moment thinking, oh no, is it going to be okay?
Dumping an antique in a plastic barrel.
Right.
Just isn't cool.
Yeah, we probably lost time making sure it was very carefully and cautiously put into the barrel before moving on. But we got maybe smart, or I guess we just kind of bit the bullet, or whatever you want to joke, and we decided let's go ahead and get another shotgun to make sure we have something competition worthy, and now we have
Stoeger M3000,
which is so similar.
Edition.
It's so similar to mine that there's not much of a change between those firearms either. So those are the guns we use. The gear we use is also kind of similar to what anybody might use in IDPA, USPSA, or any other normal kind of match like that. And again, the real difference here is that when Sean and I step up to the line and we are ready to begin, at the sound of the timer, each one of us has our own SO kind of following us around, and we might each start with our own little section of shotgun. And like he said, when we each finish our own little section of shotgun, we have to make sure that the other person is done. We call clear and then safely go to whatever that next segment of the stage is. Oftentimes pistol ends up being last, and of course then your arms are tired from the other portions of the shooting, and then you really have to get that precision shot on like a tiny little popper or something.
2-inch wide popper. It's ridiculous.
But oh my gosh, it is my absolute most favorite competition of all of them. And for me especially, it's really fun because instead of competing against my husband, I get to compete with him. And Sean and I often are in similar categories when we're at competitions. And I know there's no way of me ever catching up to him, or beating him.
Better not.
So in this respect, it's awesome because we're a team. We get to shoot the stage together and kind of cheer each other and encourage each other and hopefully challenge one another to, really bring our best to the competition. So we're looking forward to that. It's definitely a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of preparation. It's sometimes definitely a mental game like any shooting competition can be, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too.
Until next time, stay safe and be well armed.
You can read more from Beth at usconcealedcarry.com/blog and click on Pacifiers and Peacemakers in the left sidebar.
This podcast runs on your donations. Go to GunBlog VarietyCast.com and click on the donate or the subscribe button in the right sidebar. You can make a one-time donation of any amount or subscribe for as little as $2 a month. That doesn't sound like much, but we pay our server costs monthly. A little help from you is a big help to us.
Felons Behaving Badly. SBI, Goldsboro Police, investigate fatal shooting. Dateline, Goldsboro, North Carolina. The SBI assisted Goldsboro Police as they investigated the shooting death of a 42-year-old man on Tuesday. Officers responded to a shots fired call on Herman Street just before 8:45 p.m. Victim was found at the back door of a home, suffering from a gunshot wound. Wayne County EMS pronounced victim dead at the scene, police said. The SBI then helped several divisions of the Goldsboro Police Department in their investigation that led to suspect being identified as the suspect. Suspect was later located and arrested at the Econo Lodge at 704 Corporate Drive in Goldsboro.
Stop by and say hi.
He was arrested without incident. He's charged with murder and 8 counts of discharging a firearm into an occupied property. Suspect is being held under $810,000 bond.
So I understand why you blot out their names, because you don't want them getting mad and coming after you. It always tickles me when they say something like, suspect was later determined to be the suspect.
Yes, I know.
It makes me laugh.
It does kind of weird me out too.
All right, so was this just your typical criminal killing an innocent person, or is there more at play here?
Well, why don't we take a look at the records and maybe we can, draw some conclusions?
All right, let's pull up their permanent record.
Suspect, 2 counts operating a vehicle without a license, misdemeanor, class 2. 2 counts of driver's license revoked, misdemeanor, class 2. Possess Schedule 1, felon, class I. 2 counts, possession of a firearm by a felon, felon, class G. And assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injury, felon, class E.
Yeah, so he's not a stranger to violence.
But then there's the victim. Speeding to elude arrest, felon, class H. Possession with intent to sell, Schedule 1, felon, class H. And robbery with a dangerous weapon, felon, class D.
Yeah. So, okay, it's not like the victim really deserved to die, but I'm not going to lose a whole lot of sleep over this. Maybe this makes me a bad person.
I think it's more a case of we need to just point out, it's not that we want people dead, but we do need to point out that frequently people who get killed are people who were, at the time, engaged in some sort of a criminal enterprise. Because, you know what, Aaron, if I have a huge problem with you for some reason, what sense does it make for me to track you down and shoot you? I can take you to court and sue you over it, right? Right? If you've got some of my property, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, we can, let's see, possess Schedule 1, possession with intent to sell Schedule 1. Okay, that sounds like property.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have a dispute with you over that property, I can take you to court. But if that property is illegal, I can't take you to court. And if you steal it from me, I've got 2 choices. I can either let you do it, or I can kill you, or threaten you with death. So frequently, that's what's going on here. Criminals have to enforce their views. They have to enforce their contracts, if you will, with violence. We're lucky, not really lucky since we've made the choice, but because we deal only in legal things, then we can use the state to enforce and be a neutral arbiter in our contract disputes.
Yeah, it sounds to me like crime is inherently self-limiting, and it forces you down the road to violence.
Well, I don't know that it forces you down the road to violence so much as people who are willing to use violence in order to get their way are going to succeed better in that particular arena. Whereas I'm not willing to go shoot somebody over not my life, not their life, it's just property. I'm just not willing to do that. So I'm not going to get very far in the criminal world, am I?
No.
So I think it's, in addition to it encouraging the violence, it also makes it difficult for people who don't want to solve their problems with violence, or maybe it makes it easier for people who were quick to go to violence to have a job. I mean, that's what they do. They're the ones that are going to succeed. They're the ones that are going to get up top. It's like, why did Stalin end up running the Soviet Union? Because he killed everybody who got in his way. So why should anybody be surprised that he just killed a whole bunch of other people too?
Makes sense to me.
Barron runs the websites for several pro-gun blogs, including the website for this podcast. Recently, he dealt with a bizarre issue where the websites were basically spamming people. He walks us through the thought processes necessary to effectively troubleshoot what turned out to be a rather complex problem in Tech Tips. You
are damaging my calm.
Tech Tips with the Barron.
Hey kids, today I'm back and I'm going to talk about just some general tips for dealing with issues. And this is all going to stem from a story that I'm going to tell right now. So I have a couple servers that I run for a bunch of different gun bloggers. One of the servers actually hosts Sean, Weird, A Girl and Her Gun, the website that's associated with this podcast, and a few other sites that are associated with other organizations that I'm a part of. I got an abuse notice from the web hosting provider that evidently spam was spewing out. This kicked off an investigation, and I spent 3 days between investigating, digging into possible causes, and finally just saying, you know what, here's what we're going to do, and came up with a remedial action plan to try and help deal with the problem. So really what I'm wanting to talk about is the fact that sometimes you may think that you're looking at a singular problem, and you actually end up having multiple problems under the hood. One may be compounding the other. So what happened when I actually started investigating this is, while reviewing the logs, I wasn't sure if this was somebody exploiting something through a web app services, so like a WordPress exploit, or if somebody was actually compromising the underlying mail service. And in going through and reviewing that, my gut told me that someone was abusing the sharing algorithm for being able to share posts via email. I had plenty of information in the web traffic logs saying this was the case. I had information in the email traffic logs showing that there was a correlation between what was going on and what I was seeing. I went through and turned it all off. Disable it. Oh, look, problem went away. You would think that would be enough to immediately say, hey, I flipped the switch on and off. 5 hours later, I have another massive spike. I promptly quench it, get everything slowed down, and start wiring everything up for deep analytics. And when I say deep analytics, we're talking I was watching every packet going in and out of the machine. Here's where it gets interesting. After 36 hours and a bunch of digging and investigating for a needle in a haystack, it never actually happened again. The original abuse that kicked this all off never happened again. There was one other interesting happenstance, though, is that there were 2 fixes that were patches that got pushed out in the interim while I was doing the investigation. So one of those may have fixed the other issue. The big takeaway here, though, is remember when you're problem solving, you're not just trying to mask the problem or get rid of it. You want to be able to turn it on and off. You want to be able to say, I can make that change, and I know that problem's going to come back, and I can make it again, and it's going to go away. Sometimes, though, we can flip the problem off, and on the other side, eventually it might come back, but when it comes back, it's different. And that's really the behavior that I saw that I didn't realize, and that was the type of traffic I was seeing was different. Remember, kids, there's multiple types of things in life that can come up and bite you in the butt. And when you're chasing bugs, when you're chasing issues, or you're trying to problem solve, keep digging at it and just keep going and going and going until all of a sudden you reach this binary position where it's like, oh, look, if I rip this thing out, it goes away. If I put it back, it starts up again. At the same time, when really weird things start happening, it might also behoove you to start splitting things up. This is actually what I did. I split this all up so that if it does happen again, I can actually review and see exactly whether it was a web app that failed or if it was services or what other type of issue it was. It could have even been a user account was compromised and I didn't realize it until, I had reset everyone's passwords. So with that, I hope you guys have a good week and I will talk to you later.
Barron still blogs at the-minuteman.org.
Miguel is on assignment.
This is Bob Main from the Handgun World podcast, reminding you that this podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the great podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
The main topic, ugly unwanted rifles.
I swear to God, Sean, if you start playing Sarah McLachlan, Wings of an Angel, I am going to find a way to stab you over the internet.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that one to me.
Okay, just about this time every year, they start showing the pictures of all the poor, unwanted animals and how you have to send money or else they're going to die alone and unloved. And they play that Sarah McLachlan song, In the Arms of an Angel, and it's just heart-wrenching. And so when you're talking about ugly, unwanted rifles, it's like, if you start playing this, I swear I'm going to hurt you.
Well, see, I thought ugly, unwanted rifles, that they'd be talking about Mosin Nagants. Or Moisin Nagants, or whatever you call them. But it turns out they're actually talking about AR-15s. I found this via PA GunBlog. Sebastian's talking about an article on CNN, and let me just tell you what Sebastian had to say. There's a lot of sensationalist nonsense in this article on AR-15s, like, quote, as gun sales kept climbing, so did the body count, end quote, and a lot of crap about the AR-15 being designed for spray fire. But for the most part, this isn't so badly done for agenda-driven media, and reflects a lot of my memory of the issue.
Now, refresh my memory. Is CNN the one that talked about mounting a chainsaw underneath an AR? Or is CNN the one where when they tried to demonstrate a bump stock, they actually didn't have a bump stock being used?
I don't know. The Clinton News Network is just so bad that I try to block those memories out.
Layers and layers of editorial oversight.
Sebastian goes on to say, the big question I have, because I wasn't in the issue at the time, is when high-power competitors made the jump from mostly using Garands and M1As to using AR-15s, did that transition start to happen before the ban, or did the ban culture of the late 80s and 90s trigger competitors to give ARs a second look? Well, nobody gave a date, but they did answer in his comments that the military service rifle team switched over to AR-15s and started crushing the competition. And they were shooting at like 600 yards. As soon as they built barrels and had heavy bullets that were accurate out to 600 yards, that was it for the M1A, the Garands. They just couldn't keep up anymore. So I thought it was very interesting that the Army were the people that did the switch for everybody in 600-yard rifle competition. I had an M16 when I was in the Army. I had trouble hitting 300-yard targets with the thing. 600 yards, wow, you know? Let's look at the article itself. Larry Hyatt had never seen such a frenzy. The lines at Hyatt Guns, his shop in Charlotte, North Carolina, snaked out the door. The deep green-walled warehouse bills itself as the largest gun shop in America, but even then Hyatt had to stretch to meet demand. At one point, he dispatched 37 salespeople to man the cash registers. He put up velvet ropes and hired a police officer. He even put a hot dog stand outside. This was just after the Sandy Hook massacre, and customers were lined up to buy AR-15 semi-automatic rifles like the one the shooter used. That the boom in business happened after one of the most heinous mass shootings in American history was no coincidence. Mass shootings, rather than temper gun sales, only feed the hunger.
Yeah, this is, a big surprise? I mean, after every terrible, we will admit that they are terrible, tragic things, these mass shootings, but the blood isn't even dry when the usual suspects start talking about how we have to have even more gun control that wouldn't stop this sort of thing. They're dancing in the blood, they're bringing out the pictures of the dead, and they're talking about, most of them aren't talking about full confiscation, although you can kind of see how it leads to it from there. And then the ones on the fringe are talking about, no, you weren't being reactionary enough. We have to confiscate everything. So yeah, when Americans are told that one of their fundamental freedoms is going to be curtailed by politicians who are responding to sensationalist rhetoric, yeah, I can actually see why the response to that is to go out and get more of them. And honestly, this guy, Larry Hyatt, he sounds like he's got some good customer service. I mean, a hot dog stand while you wait.
Wow, 37 salespeople. Holy Christ. I've never seen a gun store that had 37 people who work for it, much less 37 people who could be on duty for sales. Wow.
I've never seen a gun store with more than 10 employees. What the heck?
And AR-15 style rifles have become a favorite among mass shooters, used in some of the most notorious and deadly mass killings in recent history. Aurora, Vegas, Texas, San Bernardino. This is the story of how media hysteria and failed policy, industry pressures and consumer demand, blood and money help turn an ugly, unwanted semi-automatic rifle into the most popular rifle in America.
So yes, the AR-15 is a favorite among mass shooters, excepting, of course, Umpqua, the Washington Navy Yard, Fort Hood, Virginia Tech, Luby's cafeteria shooting in Texas, or, the classic example, one might even say the example, the Edmonds post office shooting, which gave us that colorful phrase, going postal.
If I remember correctly, that guy had like 2 .45 caliber pistols.
You know, the Virginia Tech shooter, he used 10-round magazines.
I believe he actually had the original 2 or maybe 3 15-round magazines that came with the Glock 19, but all the rest, every single magazine he purchased, were all 10-round magazines.
All right, so, more from this article. I've got to do it in proper lurid style. Not long after it started selling M16s to the military, Colt began marketing the semi-automatic AR-15 to civilians. The company gave it the gentler name of the Sporter and described it as a hunting rifle. But the gun, designed for close, confusing combat, was not an immediate hit. In the eyes of many gun enthusiasts, the Black Rifle, as it was nicknamed, was ugly and expensive. To its champions, the AR-15 was an embodiment of fresh thinking. Critics saw it as an ugly little toy, wrote C.J. Chivers in his book, The Gun.
Yeah, we always thought that they were guns for posers. When I got my rifle at 15, that Remington Model 700 I took the deer with last year, there was only one person who regularly showed up at the range that we went to in Los Angeles who had an AR. It was a skinny little Asian dude with glasses. And we looked down on him for shooting such a teeny tiny little caliber gun, useless for deer or antelope like we all thought we were going to go hunt, and we never did. Looking back on that now, an Asian guy with an AR-15 in Los Angeles.
Could he maybe possibly be a roof Korean?
He may have been.
On a dark day in 1989, the public awoke to the notion that civilians could own semi-automatic rifles. On January 17 of that year, a 24-year-old drifter wearing combat clothes and a flak jacket walked up to his old grade school playground in Stockton, California, and pumped bullets on a crowd of children with his AK-47 rifle, a semi-automatic version that had been imported from China. Within minutes, he had squeezed the trigger at least 106 times. He then aimed a pistol to his head and pulled the trigger one last time. 5 children lay dead. 29 children and 1 teacher were wounded. The massacre was so horrifying, Colt Industries, then the manufacturer of the competing AR-15, did something unfathomable today. It suspended civilian sales of the AR-15 for a year, while the Bush administration weighed whether or not to ban the weapon.
I remember that. I'm from Los Angeles. I still lived in Los Angeles at the time of this. And we criticized the guy for his stupid choice of an AK, right? He shoots 106 times, kills 5, wounds 30 other people. And we're like, dude, a shotgun would have done a better job. And these guys just were freaking out that this guy could carry something that would shoot so many bullets so fast. And we're like, dude, he did it. I mean, if his idea was to rack up a body count, he did a terrible job. But it was so big. They made such a deal out of it because at that point, the anti-gun people were riding so high. They're like, yes, we'll make a deal out of it and we can push our gun control.
But see, here's what I don't really understand, and you may not have a good explanation for me here, but, this murderous piece of crap, he killed people with an AK-47. And so in response, Colt Industries, who made AR-15s and M16s, suspended civilian sales.
I got nothing. I don't know why they did it. They're just weird like that.
I mean, that sounds like they're admitting guilt where there was none.
Well, the other thing you got to remember is that basically nobody owned them at the time. It wasn't something that ordinary people owned. Literally. I mean, it's just not something that people had.
I will have to take your word for it. I mean, I was in high school at the time, and I admit I never gave it much thought, but I was really under the assumption that people back then had ARs and AKs, or the semi-auto versions thereof. I don't know how I came to that conclusion, but I thought I did.
Well, some people did, certainly, but they were so rare, mostly because people like me, people like my dad, were like, why would you want that? It only shoots a .223. Like, you want a real rifle that can really take down a deer or something. And most of us hadn't been in the military. The people that had been in the military had been in the military long enough ago that they were thinking M14, something like that. Something big, manly. This was when the 9mm first started, and, the poodle shooter was what they called the AR-15, and the 9mm was like the Euro pellet. And we mocked those little calibers. We just did.
Plastic fantastic.
That too, the Glock when it came out. So culturally, we were a very different gun culture back then. So back to CNN. As the profile of the AR-15 rose, talk continued of banning, quote, assault weapons, end quote, a term used by lawmakers to denote certain types of semi-automatic firearms. President George H.W. Bush, a lifetime NRA member, proposed banning all magazines holding more than 15 rounds. In 1994, President Bill Clinton pushed the assault weapons ban through Congress with bipartisan support. Presidents Reagan, Carter, and Ford co-authored a letter to the House of Representatives expressing their support. This is a matter of vital importance to the public's safety, it read. We urge you to listen to the American public and to the law enforcement community and support a ban on the further manufacture of these weapons. Hyatt, whose store was started by his father in 1959, recalled a surge in sales then too. There's something about human nature, he says. You can tell a man he can't have something, and suddenly he wants 12.
I am really tired of NRA membership being used as some sort of virtue signal or shield for politicians who claim to be pro-gun. And in the case of a lot of these establishment Republicans, it seems like they are less pro-gun and more pro-gun votes. As in, they don't really care so much for the actual liberties involved. They just want to get re-election votes from people who are gun owners, so they'll say the right thing, but not really do the right thing.
We've seen that time and time again, haven't we? We watch the, ritual, we're on the campaign trail, I've got to put on an orange vest and go spray some pellets at some waterfowl. I'm an NRA member. Like John Kerry did that even. In a certain way, it was refreshingly honest for candidate Clinton to come straight out and say, I hate guns and want to ban them. Well, I guess technically she didn't come straight out and say it. She said it behind closed doors. But we never did see her in an orange vest abusing the waterfowl. I mean, seriously, Carrie, what did the ducks ever do to you? Or the geese, or whatever it was you were molesting out there. I mean, the poor animals, they don't need to die for you to get votes. Like, be honest. Just say you don't like guns.
Oh, I'm sorry, just you mentioned Clinton molesting waterfowl, and I had an entirely different mental image.
I'm like, if you're going to go hunting all the time and you're going to eat them, hey, knock yourself out, man. That's awesome. But I'm going to go out and abuse the poor animals just so that I look good for a couple of votes? That's some cynical crap right there. You're not fooling the birds. You're not fooling me. Who are you fooling?
Through a combination of tragedy, profit, fear, curiosity, and mysterious human psychology, the AR-15 shed its early reputation as an ugly misfit and found a new place as a nimble, versatile fan favorite. Among sporting rifles, quote, AR-15 is the king of the industry, so to speak, end quote, said Michael Weeks, owner of Georgia Gun Store, which boasts the best selection of firearms in North Georgia. Veterans returning from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were comfortable with the weapon. It's also lightweight, adaptable, and relatively easy to maintain. It's everything you want, said Bartacci, the Black Rifle 2 author. You want a hunting rifle? It does it. You want a target rifle? It does it. You want a law enforcement rifle? It does it. The AR-15 is now the most popular sporting rifle in the U.S. According to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, AR-15 style rifles accounted for an estimated 61% of all U.S. civilian rifle sales in 2016. The National Rifle Association reports that Americans own more than 15 million AR-15s today.
All right, Aaron, what do we call a style of rifle that amounts to 61% of all rifle sales in the U.S. and 15 million of them in circulation right now?
I think we would call that in common use for lawful purposes.
And I think that really right here is the point of the article to me. Pandora's box is open, the barn door's open, genie's out of the bottle, and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Any other random phrase you want to say that means basically it's over with. We have millions of these things. We're not giving them back. They're totally common. Everybody has one. It's gotten to the point where you're kind of weird if you don't.
I was regarded as a weirdo for not having an AR when I started my firearm journey, and just as I was getting ready to buy one, the Sandy Hook massacre happened, and you could not buy an AR anywhere for love or money. And so I had to make do for a while with an SKS. Probably the biggest reason it's so popular right now is because you have the young men and the young women in smaller amounts who join the military, they become proficient with the weapon, they know the manual of arms. Hey, I'm gonna continue shooting this weapon that I know. It just makes sense. You don't have to learn another platform.
And that's really it for me, too. That's what they handed me when I was in the Army. I went to basic training when I was in the National Guard. So I spent, 6-8 weeks, I don't remember, down at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I came back to my college, and I felt weird without a rifle in my hand. That's how much they make you carry this stupid thing around. I felt bizarre walking around campus without a rifle. I was like, where's my rifle? I'm going to get in trouble because I left my rifle someplace. It's just what you're used to. After spending time in the military, an AR-15 is just a normal rifle. It's nothing special. It's just something that you point and you pull the trigger and a bullet goes out the end. The fact that it looks kind of scary to certain people, well, that's not my fault. That's not the rifle's fault. It's just that their reality is a little different than mine.
I think the other reason it is so popular is because good old American capitalism realized that the modular nature of the rifle means we can turn it into all sorts of other different things. You can shorten it with the 6-position stock. You can get an upper in different lengths. Hey, you can actually change out the upper. You can get technically one gun, that's the lower, and then you can have an upper in various calibers. Markets will find a way. And so between the combination of familiarity and adaptability, it's no wonder it is the most common rifle in America today. So because it's so common, because it's so adaptable, the only way we're going to get rid of it is if either the military or consumerism replaces it with something better. We're never going to make it go away. We can only surpass it with the new hotness.
And you know what'll happen then? All us old farts with our AR-15s are going to sneer at those dudes with their newfangled technology and weird stuff. And why my AR-15 was good enough for me? Why do you need that old fancy new stuff? And we're going to be the old farts.
5.56 millimeter was fine for me. I don't know why you need that phase plasma rifle in a 40-watt range.
Oh, the M16 M4 rifle was good enough for General Mattis. It's good enough for me, and it ought to be good enough for you too. Yeah, we're going to turn into the old farts when people start getting their phase plasma rifle in a 40-watt range, I'm pretty sure. My question, though, about this article is how are non-gun people going to view this, given that they're always told how obscure and fringe owning an AR-15 is? When they're faced with the reality, when they see an article like this, do they believe it? Or do they just say, nah, that ain't true?
They might, actually. I mean, from what I've seen, a large majority of the gun control side, their tactics consist of sticking their fingers in their ears and going, la 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 la, I can't hear you, la 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 la.
Oh, if that ain't the truth, I don't know what is.
Tiffany is on assignment.
Cerakote is a polymer ceramic composite coating that can be applied to metals, plastics, polymers, and wood. It's also what will take your plain Jane firearm from basic to full custom. Whether you want a handgun coated in just a single color, your hunting rifle camouflaged for your specific environment, or your competition pistol sprayed in purple, white, and black Carolina Cryptic, you want Carolina ceramic coating to do the job. Bud and his team of skilled technicians will carefully disassemble and clean your firearm, professionally apply the Cerakote in your choice of colors and patterns, and return your firearm to you in perfect working order. And they also do auto engine parts. When I wanted my competition handgun Cerakoted, I trusted Carolina Ceramic Coating, and you should too. Check out their work on Instagram. Search at CerakoteNC, that's at CERAKOTENC, or go to CarolinaCeramicCoating.com. And now it's time for Blue Collar Prepping with that bratty kid sister of the gun blogosphere, Erin Paulette.
Come on, every pony! It's time for Blue Collar Prepping with Erin Paulette!
Hey there, preppers. It's widely believed that suicide is more common around the holidays, but that's actually a myth. The peak is actually during late spring and early summer. Regardless of the myth, I've been having a rough time lately, so probably some of you have as well. This week, I'm going to give you some tips for avoiding or dealing with holiday stress and depression. Keep your expectations balanced. Or, as I like to put it when I'm feeling cynical, embrace the suck. Acknowledge that you won't get everything that you want, that things will go wrong, and that sometimes you won't feel like singing Christmas carols. Try to internalize the belief that everything doesn't need to be perfect, so don't worry about the things that are out of your control. Don't try to do too much. Fatigue, overscheduling, and taking on too many tasks can make you miserable. Women especially think they have to do everything this time of year. Instead, ask for help from your family and delegate as much as possible. It can be fun making Christmas preparations a family event. Learn to say no if you need to. By choosing to do less, you will have more energy to enjoy the most important part of the season, friends and family. Stay warm. Research has shown that warmth improves mood. If you're sad or lonely, treat yourself to a warm bath or a cup of hot cocoa, or snuggle up under a cozy blanket with a pet or loved one. Be aware of seasonal affectiveness disorder. Many people suffer depression due to a lack of sunlight because of shorter days and bad weather. Using a full spectrum lamp for 20 minutes a day can lessen this type of depression. There's a link to one that I recommend in the show notes. Understand that it's appropriate to mourn if you're separated from or have lost loved ones. If you can't be with those you love, make plans to celebrate again when you can all be together. Spend time alone to reflect and grieve if necessary, because keeping feelings inside can lead to depression, stress, or poor health. So allow yourself to feel, but don't isolate yourself. Get out of the house and find some way to join in the festivities, or otherwise do something nice for yourself, like having a quiet dinner at a favorite restaurant. Watch your diet and remember to exercise. It's normal to eat more during the holidays, but be aware of how certain foods affect your mood. Refined carbohydrates like sugar or refined starches like white bread and crackers can cause your energy levels and therefore your mood to roller coaster up and down. Instead, eat more protein, which slows the absorption of carbohydrates in your blood and increases the release of dopamine, and take a walk before or after, or both, a big holiday meal. Don't play the shame game. Embarrassment about finances can lead to taking on more debt than you can afford. Instead of struggling to buy a gift, let your loved ones know how much you care and would like to, but can't afford it. One thing I have done is told them that since I can't get them anything, they aren't obligated to get me anything either. It works about as well as you'd expect, but it makes me feel better because I know they chose to get me a gift anyway. Practice forgiveness, understanding, and avoidance. If some of your relatives always upset you, they are unlikely to change, so don't set yourself up for frustration by trying and failing. Try to accept family members and friends as they are, even if they don't live up to all of your expectations. Set aside grievances until a more appropriate time for discussion. Be understanding if others get upset or distressed when something goes wrong. Chances are they're feeling the effects of holiday stress and depression too. And if you can't accept them for who they are, don't let them push your buttons. You can accomplish that by not giving them the chance. Get out of the house and get away and adjust your attitude. Go for a walk or a drive and admire the decorations, or go see a movie. I know for a fact most movie theaters are open on Christmas Day, and that's how I created the holiday tradition of going to see a movie on Christmas.
Jordan Klepper, former Daily Show member, current host of The Resistance on Comedy Central, made a special called Jordan Klepper Solves Guns, and it's filled with anti-gun nuttery. Weird's here to set him straight in This Week in Anti-Gun Nuttery.
So the following audio segments are from the podcast Kick-Ass Politics. In this show, the host Ben Mathis interviews Jordan Klepper, formerly of The Daily Show and current host of The Resistance on Comedy Central, in promoting his special, Jordan Klepper Solves Guns. If you're a longtime fan of the show, you might remember when I covered a Daily Show piece by Klepper. Heck, even if you just started watching his new show on Comedy Central, you already know he's an anti-gun nut. I've only seen a few clips of the special because I don't have cable, and Comedy Central Online will only stream videos to cable customers. But I find this interview with Klepper being a lot more telling than the clips I've seen.
And do it in a 1-hour Comedy Central special called Jordan Klepper Solves Guns. His strategy is simple: change the minds of every gun owner in the United States, one person at a time.
Cool, that's my goal with all my podcasts as well. Let's see who wins.
Or what did we decide we were calling it? A 1-hour comedy investigative special?
Yeah, I like that.
See, this is why, despite not seeing the entire show, I like the interview better. This is one of the major problems I have with shows like The Daily Show. They tackle serious issues and often take partisan stances. But if they ever take any flack for their stances or present a story in a misleading way, they go running for the, "This is a comedy show! We do this just for laughs!" I often try to portray anti-gun nuts in a funny light, and I like to mix in an odd clip or two to make a listener laugh. My number one job here is to entertain you, because if I'm boring you, you won't listen. But the close second job I have is to educate you, and while I might crack wise, don't ever think I'm not totally serious in my coverage here.
But he becomes increasingly aware that it's the legislative red tape and special interests, much more than any cultural rift or partisan rancor, that's keeping the nation from simple safety reforms.
This is a narrative we keep hearing from the anti-gun side. We all agree about what to do about guns, but the special interests won't let us do what we all want. Sorry, that's impossible. If a lobby group was pushing an agenda so vastly unpopular that our legislators were going directly against their constituents, there would be a massive electoral coup. Instead, the pro-gun representatives come out of districts that are very friendly to guns and deeply respectful to the Second Amendment, while anti-gun legislators come out of districts that are vastly anti-gun and claim they support the Second Amendment but do anything but in their day-to-day lives. But what common sense reforms are we really talking about here?
There was a huge swath of the population that was totally on board on a lot of this quote-unquote common sense reforms.
Okay, Jordan, but what are you actually talking about?
And it's common sense. And now that has been branded as a negative. Like, for some reason, common sense is a pejorative. And we need to come up with a better word for it. Yeah.
Can you blame them? You talk a big talk about being common sense, but often you just leave it there and don't even address what the hell you're calling for. Seriously, where's the beef?
Hey, where's the beef?
It does come out eventually.
74% of NRA members support background checks. Most of the guys you talked to were okay with background checks, mandatory waiting periods.
Okay, we've talked about background checks. Maybe if it's given as a question not attached to any legislation, people will agree they're a good thing. But the current anti-gun proposals for background checks concern most gun owners because it could be used either to freeze gun sales in America or be used as an illegal registry for future confiscation. And for those who think that that's the talk of someone wearing a tinfoil beanie, back in 2013, Senator Tom Coburn drafted a bill in the wake of the Sandy Hook shooting and the wake of Bloomberg's drafted background checks bill that we currently see every time the term is mentioned. Coburn's bill would have mandated background checks on every gun sale. But this bill would allow buyers of firearms to access the federal NICS system and get a code online that would let them verify to any potential seller that they were not a prohibited person. Not only did it not require people to go to an FFL and pay more money to access the NICS, but it also didn't require any information from the seller on their identity or the firearm transferred. And why should it? The gun's irrelevant, as is the seller. All that's important is that the new owner is not a bad guy, right? Wrong. The anti-gun lobby groups and all the big-name anti-gun politicians spoke out against it, and the bill was killed in committee. That law might have been massively popular, but it has been proven time and time again that Bloomberg's model of universal background checks are only popular by a narrow margin in several anti-gun states, and wildly unpopular everywhere else. And waiting periods? Who the hell is in favor of those things? Does anybody even know where the waiting periods first came from? It came from the original Brady bill, back before the NICS even existed. Before that, a copy of the 4473 was mailed to the FBI, and they would then mail back a confirmation or a denial of the sale. The law stipulated that if the gun dealer didn't hear back from the FBI after 5 business days, somebody had seriously screwed up in doing their job, and the sale could proceed by default. In 1998, when the NICS was launched, it ended the 5-day waiting period because it was unnecessary. Of course, since the waiting period was a hassle and gun owners hated it, the anti-gunners embraced it and invented the narrative of a cooling off period. This, of course, is utter crap, as A, I've never heard of someone driving directly from a licensed gun store to commit a crime, and B, the waiting periods have always applied to all gun sales. If I have a safe filled with guns, what is a waiting period going to do to me if I have evil intent? So yeah, common sense has become a pejorative because anti-gun nuts use it as a label for total crap.
You look at a group like the NRA and they're going to wield that symbol. And it's going to be about America's trying to take away your rights. That is a hard thing to swallow. If you really buy into that, like, you don't want your rights gone.
It is a great thing to talk about. The whole reason why the federal assault weapons ban passed was because the anti-gun lobby convinced hunters and sportsmen that their personal firearms would be safe. It was just those ugly high-capacity handguns and military-looking rifles they were coming for. They're Woodstock sporting rifles, some of which might have been actual military-issue infantry weapons, and revolvers and 1911 pistols, again, which might have been actual weapons of war, were safe from the hands of gun control. Then the people who wrote the assault weapons ban wrote what is known as Brady 2, which would require expensive licenses for owners of just a single handgun and declaring most common collections arsenals and requiring additional licensing, fees, and insurance costs. It turned out, in fact, they were coming for our guns. All of them.
But that's also not what's happening. Like, the debate is being had by the wrong people.
The wrong people? What does that mean?
This debate is so poisonous that we can't even have it anymore because there's this illusion that there's two very disparate sides.
Illusion? He's implying that there's a moderate middle that doesn't agree with either side, which is true, but the moderates in the gun control debate don't care what happens either way, and certainly aren't going to protests or even call their representation. Still, if the partisan nature of the debate is still an illusion, why did Klepper put this in his documentary?
The Georgia State Militia is led by Chris Hill, or as he prefers to be called, General Blood Agent?
Yes, sir.
He filmed and interviewed a militia group because he wanted to show some extremists on the pro-gun side. I didn't watch the show, but I bet nowhere in the entire special did these clips get played.
Certainly the Australian example is worth looking at.
We know that other countries, in response to one mass shooting, have been able to craft laws that almost eliminate mass shootings. Friends of ours, allies of ours, Great Britain, Australia.
The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment.
A sitting president and a leading candidate for the presidency, both praising a nation that had massive confiscations of legally held firearms and imposed draconian restrictions on gun ownership, and has little to show for it in the way of public safety. As well as Hillary Clinton's campaign promise to overturn Heller and McDonald. Sorry, Jordan, but while there are nuts on the pro-gun side who don't believe in any laws or restrictions, there are some pretty major players on the anti-gun side who are for all-out confiscation and repeal of the Second Amendment. Maybe the wrong people are having the debate because not all the anti-gun nuts are on board about lying about their intentions and hiding behind bad faith arguments.
In addition to appearing here, Weird is a regular host on The Squirrel Report and blogs at weirdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com.
Plug of the week. NeuYear Monday 1st large wall calendar. At first, I was going to plug my mother-in-law's special Christmas cookies, Sam Buckles they're called. But I realized that really wouldn't do anybody any good because it's not like she's going to make them for you. I've been eating some cookies. It's probably why I'm fat. I have been complaining about this wall calendar that I've had on my wall. I've had a calendar that has the whole year, all 12 months, in one big 2x3 calendar ever since my wife and I got married. So we're going on, this New Year's is going to be 11 years. So for the last 11 years, I've had a wall calendar. And for 11 years, I've been complaining that the Saturday and the Sunday are on opposite ends of the week.
But isn't that how it traditionally is?
It is. I know that's the normal way to do it because tradition, but it bothers me. How much of your life is organized around what am I doing on the weekends, Aaron?
Well, not a whole lot of mine, but probably more of yours.
Most people live like that. They say, well, I've got to work from Monday to Friday. I know that. What am I going to do? And it's usually what they're doing on the weekends. So isn't it nice to be able to write down on Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to be doing XYZ, whatever it happens to be. If they were right next to each other, you wouldn't have to put one on Saturday and one on Sunday and then try to figure out which weekend that was. I've pissed and moaned and complained and really done nothing about it until this year. I put something on Facebook where I was just pissing and moaning and complaining. And one of my Facebook friends, Tammy, says, hey, you're looking for this right here. So I take a look at it. It's a giant wall calendar, 27 inches by 39 inches. It's slightly bigger than what I've been using. They've got the year done up in weeks. So they don't separate the months out exactly. They just put a little block for the first day of the month, like FEB in the block on February the 1st. And you can see all the weeks. And then Saturday and Sunday are right next to each other. So the weeks that I have to work, right? I have to work on the weekend. I'll write down that I'm working on that weekend right next to each other. Boom. Saturday, Sunday. All my IDPA matches, those are just Saturday, but I put them on all the Saturdays that I'm going to be shooting IDPA. The wife has got a few odds and ends of things she's got to do. And when you're doing, especially when you go across months, when you're doing those multiple day events, like I'm starting on Wednesday and I'm ending Wednesday the next week, because you don't separate the months out, you just mark those 7 days in a row, right? Just draw them out. It's what I've always wanted in a calendar. It is gigantic. The thing has, because they don't separate out the months, They just put them all next to each other. The blocks are even bigger than they normally are, so you can put more stuff in them. Because if you take a look at my wall calendar, it looks like a couple of children went wild with Sharpies. It's just nuts. If you've never put a calendar on your wall and planned your year, I mean, you're not planning much out beyond next month for most of us. But having something like that when you're married, trust me, it makes things a lot easier. The wife can go and take a look at the wall calendar and say, this is the weekend my husband has to work. Or I can go there and say, well, that's the weekend she's going to gaming. If we're going to have a weekend away, let's not put it on that week. It's already marked on the calendar. Don't do that. And when you're dealing with a person who doesn't use a smartphone, like my wife doesn't, it really is a whole lot easier just to put it on a calendar. And frankly, even though I do have a smartphone, it's easier to put it on a big wall calendar. So check it out. It's $28 plus $3 shipping. So for $31, I think, maybe it's $32. I've forgotten exactly what I paid for it. You can have a giant 27-inch by 39-inch laminated wall calendar that you can write on to dry erase. If you want to be one of those people for whom a 1911 and a Garand are the perfect weapon, you can get a calendar that starts on Sunday like all the other calendars do too. But if you want to join the modern era, if you want to get your weekends together, check it out to get the Monday 1st version. There's a link in the show notes to the Monday 1st version. If you look around, you can find there are other versions, there are other calendars, but I'm looking forward to using this calendar for once.
The Glock of calendars.
Well, you know what? After 11 years of pissing and moaning about it, finally somebody listened and made me a calendar. Well, that's our show for the week. Remember that GunBlog VarietyCast Radio is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Find the show notes at gunblogvarietycast.com/episode 174.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the GunBlog VarietyCast. Music courtesy of Rob Allen at blog.roballen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. This podcast is made possible by the Firearms Policy Coalition and by contributions from listeners like you. This is a URS production.